Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Coda Conversations. Today we have special guest Luis Flores. How are you doing, Luis?
Yeah, no, I'm doing good, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Oh man, glad to have you on, man. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and give us a little bit of history on yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, pretty much today I have call it small tech company. You want to call it very small, but nevertheless, it's a really a team of just me, one other employee, and a few contractors. And what we do, we kind of do a few things, but we try to focus mainly on like two, three areas only. So we do like web app development for our clients. So, a client that needs a web app built right of whatever kind of features, it really, as of right now, hasn't been anything that we cannot handle. But, pretty much whatever idea they have, we would, build it out and then but we also manage it as well, right? So we don't just build it and then deploy it um and then they have to deal with managing after that. We actually manage it because what I have noticed what happens in these cases is after we deploy an app, uh, at least so far, at least to my experience, every time we deploy an app, after we finish with the deployment, the client's brains just starts rolling of, hey, I want this feature, or you know what, it'd be cool, we could do this. Now for me, that's a big plus because that's more work, right? I charge for it pretty much, more development work. So we start expanding on the app and adding all these features, and then ultimately from there, once everything is somewhat settled, because I manage everything, then I'm able to charge them like a monthly subscription slash service fee, right, to kind of
Mm.
manage it and all that. So that just kind of allows revenue to keep coming in every month as well. So that's like one piece of what we do. From a technology stack, just kind of anybody who's interested, we use Python, Django framework, Flask. Um, for the front end, we use Vue.js, of course, JavaScript and just, things of that nature. I'm not a front end guy. Like I know how to work. I know JavaScript, right? By all means, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I do know how to get things done in the front end. But that is not my. I enjoy the back end more than the front end. Put it that way.
Mm.
Front end, you gotta, it's needed by all means, but it is not my what I actually enjoy anyways. Um, but either way, that's one piece about something that we do, and then some other aspects. Another piece is integration. So I deal with a lot of clients that they want to integrate their system with, be able to communicate with other systems, right? Whether it be an SAP system, whether it be um, a trade partner like, let's say, Walmart, Walgreens, the list goes on, Shopify. I'm just naming a few that I have actually worked on, Wayfair, um, things of that nature, right? So, and of course, every one of these is, they all kind of fit in a bucket, but they're like Shopify, it would be through a RESTful API, pretty straightforward. Like in those cases. Then of course you have like Walmart and Target. It's through X12 EDI. So again, it's pretty much it's a text file, but it's very if you're not familiar with it, it won't make sense when you look at it the first time. It's very different than like a traditional XML or JSON file for sure. Like it doesn't even come close to any of those files. It's a bit cryptic. You want to, because you're dealing with segments, and then um, you know qualifiers, and unless you know what those codes represent, then yeah, it doesn't make sense. But either way, um, and yeah, again, so either way, whatever method it is that we need to communicate, we build that out. We'll build the connection for, from trade partner to, let's say, my client system, and then even all of that stuff, I manage all of that as well. So for again, kind of going back to after we build it, there's certain software that I use to kind of have these jobs execute, whether it be every hour. Maybe there's some webhooks in place where the order gets created, we receive the order, but nevertheless, my middleware will process it and then ends up sending it to the client system, for example, things of that nature. But so again, my mindset when I first started, the company, I was kind of, well, all right, if I work on a project, I mean, I need money. I need revenue coming in, because if I'm done, then what do? Right? I need to find more work, I guess, pretty much, right? That's kind of how I was in the beginning. So that's kind of where I just kind of got the idea. And here's the thing: I know everybody doesn't like doing that because I know I have heard other developers be like, yeah, it's better just to build it and then move on. And I get it. I totally understand why to do that as well. But I think when I first started, I was more the other mindset of, well, how do I, after I build something, like have more revenue still coming in on a reoccurring basis. So that's kind of where I decided to offer that to my clients. And then a lot of the clients that I deal with, most of my clients are not big clients. Now, let me rephrase it. Like the small clients that I do have, I mean, they're probably like, I don't know, maybe like 15, 20 million in like revenue, I guess, annual revenue, which is actually not that much, for a company. But I do have some that are a little bit more, maybe like 100 million or 200 million, like revenue per year, clients. And those have actually are the ones that I feel have worked out very well, because not just because I make more money, but ultimately they're like, well, we don't want to hire an IT team, or because then we're going to need a team of more than one person, because when they take vacation and this and that, so they see like, I'd rather, let's say, pay you 100,000 a year, because maybe that's kind of what the fees and all that ends up being per year, and then I end up managing and designing, managing, and doing all that. And then and for me, it's kind of like, all right, well, if I could get a few clients like that, then that adds up. That allows me now to hire, which I have another, maybe to bring a full-time employee, then have like 2 contractors to help out on certain projects. So that was kind of the mindset, and so far has worked out well. But again, I do understand why some people may not want to go down that path, right, to take on that risk, for sure.
So how is the stability of like working for yourself versus working in corporate America?
So I've been doing like working for myself now. So before I started my business, I probably was a consultant contractor, you want to call it, for about a year. So, but from then on, it's probably been about 4 years, 5 months, around there, something like that, that I've been kind of like having my own business or doing my own thing. And I would say that I don't know I could go back. I know if I have to, I could go back, right? If things just, clients leave and I can't get no new business or whatever, like, I mean, I feel very, confident in my skills. Because one of the I would say a benefit anyways, but one of the benefits of because I'm working on building different apps for my clients, well, the request, like what we're building, is always different. Again, a traditional, just, like there's aspects that are very similar, like crude functionality, right? You gotta create and read and delete, and again, those aspects are kind of going to be standard in a lot of applications. But there's a lot of applications that I have built that they always have these nuances, that it's completely some kind of feature that probably is, never, I have not worked on, or whatever, just something different. So I'm always learning. There's always something that I'm learning. And then because I've been using AWS to manage everything, there's tools that I've been, like Lambda functions I have been using to kind of run certain things. I use AWS Glue to do some like data processing. Just getting, like my DevOps. Again, I'm not a DevOps person, but I was in the position that I was in, I had to learn that. because when I started, it was just strictly me for one, and then, I just had to learn it if I wanted to take the paths of me managing and doing all of that. Again, I had some knowledge of DevOps, but again, I had never worked in that position, right? So, a lot of it was just kind of me learning as I went. So again, on that aspect, I feel very good. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think I could go back anymore. I mean, again, if I have to, I will. But if I don't have to, I don't think I would just be like, you know what? I don't want to do what I'm doing no more. Let me just go work for somebody else, because my schedule is very, like, I get to kind of dictate the schedule. Um, I have two kids, so, and they're little. So being in the position that I'm at, I'm able to do a lot of stuff, like I pick up my daughter from school every day,
Mm.
and I wouldn't be able to do that if I was working in a, just, at least for me in a way, like the company that I had worked at before. Normally you don't get off to like 5:30, sometimes 6, that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't be able to do none of that. Um, and it was tough too, because my wife, especially back then, we were both working, and our jobs were like kind of distance from the home, and got to pick up kids, so it's always like just rush. And now it's very, it's not that rush no more, just because I could like schedule out, especially during those times, like, all right, I'm gonna pick up my daughter X, so I don't schedule any meetings, or I make sure that any clients that want to meet, we can meet, either the next day or before that or whatever, right? But I get to kind of control all of that. So yeah, I don't think I could go back.
How much time is spent coding versus like in meetings and reaching out to clients?
So honestly, I think coding is not that much, and I think it's there's a few reasons why. One reason, I'm not the only person anymore, right? So before, when I first started, it was me. So I was doing all the coding. I had to do all the architectural aspects of it, right? Design, and then code it and do meetings. So I was doing everything. And here's the thing: during those times, I was working like 16-hour days, in the very beginning. Like, so again, I've been like almost 4.5 years in, like, with my company. I will say the first 2 years for sure, man, easily working weekends as well. Weekends, not putting that many hours, but still putting in some good hours on the weekends and the weekdays. I mean, Friday nights as well, man, up till, late hours. And everything's all calm now. I got to the position where I could at least hire somebody. I could pay somebody. I
Mm.
could hire somebody. So now a lot of the stuff gets pushed on. They're able to, you know, focus and do all of that. And they don't deal with none of the meetings, like client meetings. So they're not really bogged down of meetings and meetings. We just have like weekly meetings, once a week, and then they just boom go do their thing. But I still code because I actually enjoy coding. Like,
Mhm.
so I do code, but I think what has happened is, A, I don't have to code as much. So that's one reason why I don't code as much. But B, there are certain things that, uh, like, even though a lot of projects are slightly different, but there's a lot of pieces of it that are very repetitive. Like, it's not new. I have done before. So I think just from years of experience now, when I work on a project, I could knock a good chunk of it in a very short period of time. Or maybe before, I don't know, let's say 5 years ago or something, just kind of gets a good chunk of it, the initial setup, and get some of the core pieces set up. I don't know, probably easily looking at maybe a few weeks. Where now I feel like some of that stuff I could probably knock out in a matter of just a few days, if anything, maybe even less. So I think the timing too, right? Like, stuff that I'm able to just jump on, and like, if I were to focus for an hour or two, like really coding, I could not uh, get a good amount of work done in that short period of time. Um, but again, I think a lot of it just kind of comes through experience as well of doing, doing that. And because I'm very focused like on the development that I do is again Python, Django, Flask, like those, again from the back end, that's what we're using. So and I've been keeping up at least with Django with a lot of like the latest updates and stuff like that. Um, Again, when it comes to development, it becomes very very easy to get initiated, and everything just gets faster in a way it seems like. So I think coding on a weekly basis, it's actually small. Like I don't know what the number is, but if I were to guess, it's probably, I don't know, like anywhere between 6 hours a week for sure. I don't think no more than 10 hours a week. I think it's under 10 hours a week of actual like coding. Um, and then when it comes to meetings, it's a little bit more because uh, either meeting with clients, like there's some clients that not some, actually a good amount of my clients are reoccurring clients. Like they pay a monthly service. Um, so there's always like features they want to, again, kind of, I want to add this to my app, or I want to do this, or hey, what can we do for this? So because of that, there's some of the clients we have like recurring once a week meetings to kind of review status updates and kind of get new requirements. So, but it's nothing crazy, but still, that's probably like a good six, no more than 10 hours a week in meetings. And then yeah, and then I would say the rest of the time is just kind of design work, like trying to just kind of scope out the project. If it's a new project, design it out. But I think again, development work, it's very minimal now than what it used to be for sure.
So for those who want to start their own consulting business, like how do they get in front of clients? Like how would they reach out to these companies?
So for me, what helped me out, and this is something like I would tell people now, wherever you work, right, wherever you're working at today, it doesn't matter if so let's say the company that somebody who's watching and the company that they're working for today, let's assume that they're not even programmers in that company. They could just be an analyst, they could be sales, it doesn't matter, right? But you're working at that company. A, you gotta have soft skills, like um, get to know people in that organization. Build some relationships. Don't burn your bridges when you leave. So you end up leaving. Don't be one of these guys like, oh, when I quit, f everybody and blah 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 or whatever. Like, don't do none of that, man. Like, build relationships, build friendships, get to know people, do all of those kind of things, regardless of what your role is. So for me, that's what what I have done throughout the years when I have worked with for other companies. I don't think I did it for the sake of, hey, I'm expecting something to return, because I didn't know that I was gonna be, working for myself either. Just kind of one of those deals that kind of happened. Um, but again, a lot of the clients that I have today came from people that I knew from back then. So that's how I got most. Like when I say most, I probably got about 85% of the business that I have today actually came from people that either I worked with in the past. So again, kind of going back, there's people that I worked with in the past that at the time they were the same, let's say the same level I was. I was just a little peon in the company. They were just the same as me. Now, X amount years later, like just kind of give an example. There's somebody, we were both just analysts at the time, some years back. We weren't nothing special. We weren't senior analysts, nothing like that, right? And well, now he became a real close friend of mine, and we have always stayed in touch. Well, now, like again, years later, he works for this healthcare company. He's an executive there at that company. And now because he has now power and authority to hire vendors and do all kinds of stuff, well, he hired me as one of his vendors to do X, Y, and Z, and we're kind of in the middle of building an app for them as well. So again, you never know, man. So whoever you're working with, like especially again, even the position that they're in may not see of importance now, but you never know. 10 years from now, they could be an owner of their own company or an executive or somebody of some kind of authority. And if you build a relationship and keep in touch and all that, I mean, it may help you out. At least for me, it has. And that's just one example. There's other examples of people that I worked with. Same thing, right? As we kind of moved on, like I moved on from that company, we went to another company. They moved on from that company that we both worked at when they went to another company. And then they find out from like another friend or whoever, like, hey, I heard you're doing your own thing. They're like, man, maybe you could do some work for us. And again, same thing. It just kind of how it worked out until it became an actual business now, pretty much.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I've heard like well, I perfectly experienced it. Like soft skills are extremely important. Like technical skills alone, it's only going to take you so far.
Yep, no, I totally agree. And like just kind of tell you a story on that piece. So one a previous company that I worked at, um, there was this guy. I'm not going to mention the name, of course, but he was very smart. Like I would say, without a doubt, he was, in my opinion, like 10 times smarter than me. He was older than me, but he had very like he's been in the industry for like 20 plus years, so he's had that very deep root knowledge of it, and he was smart. Like we talk, and I could talk to him about tech stuff, and he knew exactly what he's talking about, and he had all these details, even from like lower level stuff on how things work, and like very smart guy. And but he was one of the guys where he knew he was smart, but he was just an ass about it to everybody. Like he kind of made it known, like, hey, you got to do things my way because I know better than you. It just the approach, right? Like there's things that he tried to do. It was like, and I have talked because I could actually talk to him. Everybody else couldn't, but I was able to talk to him. Like, dude, you cannot tell people like it's the way it's coming out. Like you sound very arrogant, but I know what you're saying, and you're actually right. Like technically, you're 100% right, but dude, the way you approach it, it's wrong. You cannot do that. And then one day, he had that kind of approach. Was his I guess not his boss, direct boss, but the VP of IT or whatever. They were in the meeting. He approached him the same way. Man, he was gone after that. And it wasn't right away gone, but because I mean I don't know, maybe the company could get in trouble, I guess, but as well. But it was they were going to have a layoff. Well, after that though, at least that's what rumors came out, was that even though he was that good, but that encounter with the executive, the way it came out, he's like, nope, I don't want him. He got to go. And again, it kind of goes back. It doesn't matter how smart you are. I mean, if your soft skills are not at least reasonable to some extent, I mean, they could actually get you fired in some cases.
How do you recommend somebody that doesn't really have good social skills? Because in the software engineering world, a lot of people just like to stay to themselves. Like, how would you recommend that they develop their skills?
Oh man, that's kind of tough. That is tough, man. I mean, I think for sure you gotta communicate. Like you gotta make yourself to communicate to some extent. It's kind of like practice, right? If your if your communication skills suck, well, in order to get better at it, you gotta start communicating, I guess, to some extent to kind of practice. But at least if you know that you need to get better at it, hopefully you have an observation of how you're communicating. How are they taking your communication, or are they looking at you bad because the way the words that are coming out of your mouth sound arrogant, or are they being attaching to you where they enjoy your company. um but yeah, I'm not, I mean, again, I'm not one. I think for me, what helped me out anyways, and I know, like I did not grow up from a traditional like I didn't go to university. Like I haven't been code like some I know some people having a programming background from, let's say, even high school or middle school or whatever. For me, I actually didn't start until probably my mid 20s. Um, Before that, I was always tech savvy from a hardware standpoint, maybe like building computers or, disassembling. So, I mean, I had some knowledge. I mean, when it comes to tech anyways, but when it comes to software, I didn't know nothing. And then also in my earlier years, I worked in a warehouse. So we had to communicate. You got to communicate with other warehouse employees or other employees. And so you're kind of forced to talk and communicate, where I know in software, it may not always be the case. It could be literally you're on your own you may talk once a week in a team meeting or something. That's it. You potentially could just do your thing and, not really talk as much. But yeah, no, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what's the best approach. I mean, the only thing I would probably would say would just be, for sure, get out of your comfort zone and kind of force yourself to communicate, but be aware of how you're communicating. So if you are communicating poorly, hopefully you're able to observe that and make your corrections, right, or some sort.
So for somebody that wants to start their own like consulting business, what are some of the maybe some of the unforeseen challenges that pop up, some that they might not expect?
So for me, one of my challenges that I learned right away, the big challenge too. So when I first started my business, my this is from my previous employer of mine. They actually the one that hired me to kind of to do a project for them. And the first project was small, right? So it wasn't like a big project. I mean, like dollar amount, it wasn't big. It was like 1,700 $1,700 or something like that, right? So it wasn't nothing big. But after that, it's like I didn't have nothing else because I literally just got started. I had some cash, of course, to kind of at least keep me afloat for a little bit, but nevertheless, I didn't have no more projects in the pipeline or anything to work on. And then it was probably like maybe a week or two after, they're like, hey, we have this idea of building this app, and we want to see if you could quote us and so on. So I had a meeting, and I had a meeting with the client. We kind of met, and I remember talking to them. They were little, at least at the time, because I was talking to the people that I knew, my contact. Well, they were going to push this over to their boss to get approval. So when we were talking, they're like, yeah, man, like they were kind of concerned, like, yeah, the amount that I gave them, they may not approve. It may be a little bit too much, and stuff like that. And here's the thing: I did not charge them a lot either. It was like very, it was small amount for the actual work. But because I heard the way I heard them talking and kind of being concerned, I kind of reduced my price. Like, you know what, that's, and like looking back at it, it was already too low to begin with, way too low. Well, now I even pull it back because again, my mindset at the moment was, well, damn, I don't have no other business, I don't have nothing else, so I'm just trying to take something right at the moment. And that's a mistake. I wouldn't do that. I mean, you got to stick to your guns, and I should have stick to the guns. And I'll explain to you in a minute why I should have. But either way, I reduced down the price. Then they took it to their boss, and they're like, "Yeah, they approved." And then the project got going, and once the project got going, again, a second mistake I made. All of these additional requirements came up after that. Oh, we would like to do this and do this and do this. That was out of scope. But I didn't have nothing set in stone either. Like we had something basic, written up as an agreement, but uh, again, part of it was, I think, the fear aspect of it. Well, man, like I don't want to, like, if I start charging them for all these extra features, like they may not want to do it no more. And so there was some concern of like, well, I don't want them to stop the project because, man, I kind of need the money too. So just kind of that, in the bad situation. But again, I should not have done that because ultimately I ended up trying to do all their requests that they wanted. The project should have took no more than three months. Ended up taking about 8 months. So it took a long time to begin with because of all the all the additional fee requests. But besides the additional requests, the scope that they initially gave me, there was some a lot more complexity that they did not even mention that now had to be, developed for. So now there was like all this additional complexity we had to deal with. So it took way more time, months and months after. And this was me just working on that project only, right? So I wasn't working on nothing else. I didn't have no other clients at the time. I'm literally working on that project and that project only. And then, and then the third issue, and this is another mistake that kind of anybody who's new, was because they were previous clients of mine. Like, I want to say not let me rephrase, not clients. They were a previous employer of mine. I used to work for them back in the day, but now they became a client. So there was like a good relationship, I guess, kind of trust factor. But again, the mistake that I made that I would not, don't do if you're getting into this, I should have asked for some cash up front, and I didn't. I didn't. Because in my mindset initially, but even like I know better now, but my mind initially was, oh, this should take 2 months, 3 months max. So I was thinking more like, all right, knock it down 2 months, and then of course I invoice them for the full amount, then I get paid, type deal. Well, it took 8 months, so that means I didn't get to invoice them till 8 months. Then to make it even worse, the way they pay, because this is a bigger company, is it's net 60 days. So on top of that, even though I invoiced them 8 months, well, I actually did not get paid until 10 months from the start of the project till whenever. And it was tough. Like financially, man, I think I was down to the last few dollars I had in my bank account pretty much at that time, like just to live. But again, as soon as got to that point, I mean, the paycheck did come in, but a lot of it went away quick. Everything had to get paid, the mortgage bill, whatever, all this stuff. So even though, I mean, it was, when you look at it as a one lump sum, it was like, all right, nice chunk, but man, a lot of it went away quick. But then when I do the math, like, do the math over, like, man, for those 10 months for what I charged, it was like probably like $1,200-$1,500 a month, but I actually got paid. Like, when that's kind of what it was. It's like, dude, again, but lot of mistakes that I made in the very beginning. And then of course I corrected that. The good thing about it, though, once we got to the point where that initial project was somewhat complete at that moment, the scope, then it started coming up with requests. And then that's what helped me out, because at that point I'm like, you know what? They're going to pay for these features pretty much. And they did. That's when I started charging them, all right, you want this feature? 5,000 or whatever, 8,000 or whatever it is, just, and then of course at that point, because the core of the app was already built, adding the feature didn't actually take that long. But that's where I really kind of made up some of the money in a ways back, because but man, it was tough. Again, always get some money up front, 50% if you can up front, and then of course the rest, at the end, or do some kind of one third, something of that sort. But you got to get some cash up front. You can't just build it out, because what happens too, some projects die. I have worked on projects where they actually die in the middle of the project. But at that point, when those projects have occurred, and at least in my case, I did charge 50% up front. So once the project died, I didn't get the other 50 that remained, because the project was dead. So it's not like they're like, oh, we're paying, because the agreement was 50% up front, 50% when the project completed. Well, because they canceled, it's a done deal. But in the same time, I mean, I was able to at least get 50 of it, so it wasn't like a total loss. So yeah, man, you got to get some of that money up front. And then also, as you do, like, really write down the scope of the project and really try to ask all the questions up front of what you're dealing with of that project, um, in order to give them a proper quote. And then if you don't get too many details, make it known to them, like, hey, I'm getting too high level of details of what I need. I really need some lower level details. So in order for me to give quote properly, I need to get some of these details. I need to meet with somebody, or you have to tell me. And if I can't get that information, keep in mind that the quote that I'm going to give you is going to go up. You got to just kind of communicate and be kind of clear up front, so at least they're aware of it. So they're not like, oh, well, you said you're going to be $10,000, but now you're trying to charge me $15,000. At least if they know why, because of X, Y, and reason, at least you could justify it, right? Um, but yeah, those are some of my mistakes, man, that I made and had to learn the hard way. And but yeah, again, you learn from it and man, correct it to fix it for sure.
So, like, what are some of the things that you had to change in your negotiation strategies to make sure you weren't getting underpaid and overscope?
So there's a few things that I have noticed, like kind of give an example. I have two there's two different they're different type of clients, and the way when it comes to how I quote them, I actually determine it on how big the client is as well. So I have one client right now that they bring in like 200 million in revenue. An example. Then I could have another client that brings in, let's say, $5 million in revenue. And then let's say if I'm doing a similar project on both, um, the approach that I well, so the let's say if I build an app for the $5 million revenue client, and let's say for that app maybe it's $10,000, just an example, and they're cool with it, they pay it fine. Let's say I build a similar app for the $200 million client. Normally in that case, I'm not charging them $10,000 for the app. Normally in that case, I may charge them $50,000 for that app, for example. And what I have noticed is they're okay with it, and they'll pay for it. They'll pay it, and and everything's good. If I were to charge that smaller client a higher amount, they wouldn't buy. It's for them. They may be like, oh, that's too much. And I kind of picked that up from, actually, I'm trying to think of the name. Somebody on YouTube that I was watching a few years back. He was kind of like a marketing strategy kind of guy, and that's where he was talking about, like, I don't. The way I quote it varies by who my client is. If I have a big client, I'm not going to charge them, $100 an hour or whatever to do this kind of work. But there's some reason behind that too, and I guess at least the reason behind he was kind of mentioning was, normally big clients, they're used to dealing with big players that probably charge $1,000 an hour or something like that. So if you come in with $100 an hour, even though for some clients may seem, oh yeah, I'm getting a discount. For bigger clients, they're like, no, I want good quality. Like, I want someone who's a professional or someone that knows what they're doing. So when you lowball too much, it actually kind of hurts you, I think, than instead of helps you, because it makes it seem like you're just this small player, and it just, compared to charging more, they makes them feel like, all right, I'm dealing with somebody that must be good, or they know what they're doing. But that's kind of what I have done, and at least so far, I mean, it actually has worked. So it's kind of the way I quote. It is based on the client. I do hear some of the clients. Like, I have one client. This is like a couple of months ago, where I actually knew the person. So before they became a client, kind of go back to building relationships, I knew the guy, and he's the one that called me saying, "Hey, I heard you do like integration projects or whatever. Maybe you could do something for me." Like the company he's working for, anyways. And then that's kind of where I started asking questions like, well, who's doing? Because they had somebody doing the integration, but it was more of a the WMS company that they're like the software that they're using. That same company were providing some service, but it's always tough because a lot of the time it takes them a while to help you out, right? You got to put a ticket, and sometimes they don't help until a week or two later, and so they didn't really like that much. But either way, I asked questions like, hey, well, how much are they charging you, and what are you paying? And then I kind of got a feel of what's considered high for them as well, because I asked them, like, though, because he mentioned, yeah, there's this other company, they did some work, but man, they want to charge us like X amount, and that's kind of high. So for me, that was kind of like an indicator. All right, well, this is too high for you, and I see what they're charging you today. Like they may not provide you good customer service, but I know they do provide a service, and based on the service they're providing, they're charging you like X amount per month. Whether whatever that may be. So in those cases, that's kind of how I'm able to kind of balance it out and try to quote it in a way. If I see that works, right? If I have to go lower than that, then I'm like, you know what? It's not even worth doing. But if it's still worth doing, at least I have an idea like, all right, I need a quota within this range because I already know that this is too high. I already know that the current vendor is charging up X amount. So at least that kind of gives me an idea on how to quote.
So in learning this business, did you have a mentor, or was most of it like self-taught and trial and error?
It was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of just trial and error. There was a lot of self-learnings. Again, kind of how I mentioned, like the marketing stuff of a bigger client charge more, littler client charge less. Um, there was a lot of that immediate learning on YouTube, going on YouTube, just kind of, again, putting in the hours of just trying to get familiar with different things. And again, in my case, I'm a software developer, but there's a lot of things that relate that are outside of that scope that I had to learn, like just basic stuff. I mean, I don't call it basic stuff, but stuff even like HR stuff, because I do have one employee, so they have healthcare, dental benefit. I had to get that set up. They got to deal with taxes. Just got to deal with you know um paying employees. Stuff that just, I mean, normally as a developer you wouldn't deal with, but because now I mean, I do have a business, so I have to deal with all this programming stuff as well. Um, that I have to deal with. So yeah, there's a lot of just self learning. Well, I would say though, one of the things that I have been getting better at, and I think it's been paying off, is there's stuff that I've been starting to kind of outsource out for sure. Like for the first couple of years, I did my own taxes. Well, this past year that just passed, I didn't do my taxes. I hired an accountant, and I can tell you right now, man, like let's just say the savings was like night and day. I mean, I don't know if I must have been doing my taxes wrong or something, but man, what I was paying compared to hiring a CPA and an accountant to do my taxes for 2022, big difference in a positive way. At least for me, in a way, maybe not the government, but still. But little just stuff like that where like I don't need to deal with that. If anything, I'd rather give it to somebody that's better than me because I was able to save money. So they're staying. That's why I do have a few contractors now as well that do help out that are kind of more, kind of how I mentioned earlier. I'm not a front end guy. Like when I say front end, I could deal with JavaScript and some Vue and stuff like that. Like I don't have a problem per se with that. When I say front end, I'm not a big fan of like CSS. SAS
Mhm.
is the styling of it, right? That's for me. I really never had a passion for that, and sometimes it could be a pain in the butt to get things to line up right or to be positioned a certain way. So I do have somebody that's good at that. So anytime I need things done, boom, here I give it to you. Like you work on that, the styling, and work on that piece to kind of speed up the process, and I'm able to kind of focus on these stuff that I want to do, I guess, which is more the back end stuff. Um, Stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, out of it, a lot of self learning, but again, I'm starting to learn more as well that I think the more that I'm surrounding myself with other people that are actually better, I could now start more out, delegating or like the person that works for me right now. Um, she does like database um, mapping, like integration mappings. Like she works on like all that kind of stuff, like XML, like parsing XML files or JSON files, and doing some of the setting up the jobs or building like working on AWS glue jobs or things of that nature. And so like now, anytime we get stuff like that, boom, it's on you. Like I don't have to do it no more. they could do it. They focus on that, and that's kind of like how kind of where I think I've been more focused the last year or so. Where like, all right, I don't need to do everything. I could now start finding people that I would say actually better than me, anyways, in that specific task to do those things. And that's kind of where I think I'm trying to. I think for me, I have to do that anyways if I want to try to expand the company. And right now we actually have a product, like our own product, because how I mentioned, I work all the apps that we build are for our clients. Well, we just built our app that we own, that I own, I guess, called Go Share It. So this year we're gonna be really pushing that to see if we could have some success with that platform. Again, maybe it flops. Who knows, right? I'm not sure, but right now we have it. We have it published today. It's in a beta version, but there's features that ultimately will be rolling out in Q1 of this year, and then really start marketing it Q2 of this year, and at least try to see if there's some kind of life with the product, right? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but at least I gotta try. You gotta try, because if I just right now, if I just leave it the way it is, I mean, it's not gonna nothing gonna happen. I don't think, because nobody knows about it. So I do need to at least try to put some effort into the marketing aspect of it, and try to see if there's a chance for that. And I think if that succeeds to some extent, in ways, then that'll help the company grow, and that would allow me to continue to do what I've been doing, which is find people that are better on doing certain things than I am and have them do it. And then, I can focus on other things for sure.
So like when you first started, I know like money really wasn't coming in, things were tight. How did you avoid like getting psyched out and deciding, hey, I'm gonna just quit and go back to corporate America?
Um, so I think for me, what kind of helped out a little bit was, even though money wasn't coming in the beginning, but I was working. The difference is it's just the way I did that project. I just did it very. I did not do it well. Like for example, I did not charge the customer upfront, like a percentage upfront. So that's my mistake. I told the customer, hey, I would invoice you at the end of the project, because in my mind I'm thinking, oh, it's gonna take 2 months, then I'll invoice them. But I didn't know either that they had a 60-day net on their vendors. So knowing that as well, I mean, I wouldn't, doesn't make sense to wait to invoice them at the end. So I mean, at least for me, it wasn't like when I first started the business. I had one job, like one project, very small. It only took me about a week to do, and boom, I was able to knock that out. And then it was again very shortly after that, a week or two, I got the I met with the same client to work on the other project that was a little bit bigger. Um, so it wasn't like I would just like, oh man, I started my business, but I don't have no clients, or I have no business. I was working. It just the way I did it was just terrible. I just didn't have any cash coming in, but I was working though. I was working every month. It's almost like if you go into work every day, and the employer just tells you, all right, I'm going to pay you 8 months from now, or not even 10 months from now, but I'm going to give it to you a lump sum, of whatever it is that you worked. It was kind of something like that, but of course the lump sum was not really a lump sum, because the way my quote was so low that it literally equated to like $1,200 a month or something like that, right? It wasn't even that much. Um, but yeah, I think that again, once I got through that hurdle, um, right away though the client came back. Oh man, and again, this is where kind of going back to that project. Like I look back at that one project, and I mean, I guess I could tell you it's not a big deal, but I quoted 12. I think it was like $12,000 for that project. That took me 8 months to do, and it was really I didn't get paid a 12 months. I mean, think about it, $12,000 for almost a year. Like that's crazy. Like especially for anybody, any job that you're doing. But that's kind of what it was. What did help out though, as soon as we finished that project, Um, Other quotes came in to do other stuff. But even that amount that I charged, like when I look back at it, and this is where I know I messed up, and I could have easily, like knowing the comments, at least what I heard after that, and this came from like the bigger guys in the organization, that they were a big fan of that. Dude, this app is awesome, and we should roll it out to our other divisions, and all kinds of stuff like that came out of it. Um, I think if I would have charged six figures, they would have bought it. Like I really think, like looking back at it, I could have easily charged six figures for that app, 150, maybe even 200,000, and I feel pretty confident knowing. But again, I think a lot of it was I just didn't know, and because of lower managers that I was talking to, they were like, "Oh man, we don't know if upper management going to approve it." But then when I started talking to upper management and some of these guys, dude, they were like so excited about it and so excited what how they could roll it out to these divisions and this and that. And then I started hearing how much they pay for other vendors for like other software that they use, where they just spend like, oh, they spend 1.5 million for this vendor and 2 million for this. I was like, dude, like knowing that and hear that, I was like, I could have easily charged maybe quarter million. They would have been, yeah, I think in a way they would have been
Mm.
okay. That's where I like again, you learn. I should have stick with a better quote, but I was kind of more in that. Well, I need kind of like I need the job. I don't have no other projects. I need something better than nothing. Right? That was kind of my mindset at the moment. But yeah, I should not have sold myself, because I think for sure I left a lot on the table.
Do you still feel like that first project was worth it, even though like monetarily you didn't make that much, but the connections and knowledge you gained?
I think so. From that aspect of it, I think it worked out well, because again, features came after that project, and when as they started asking for these features, I knew they already had deep pockets as well to spend. So I was like, well, you know what? I gotta get some money back. So that's where I started charging for, again, feature, like for them it's like, oh, this is a feature we want, and how complicated is it? For me, it literally took me like a week, maybe 2 weeks, but I was charging five, eight, $10,000 for that feature, and then and that I think we did that for a good 8 months of doing that. So again, initially for the first 10 months, it was like, dude, when you break it down, $1,200 a month maybe, but after that, dude, I was charging them like crazy, knowing, again, kind of going back, knowing that they had deep pockets, knowing that their other vendors charge them arm and a leg. So even if I charge them what I consider to be a lot for me, it's pennies to whatever they're paying for other vendors, anyways. And they did. And that's the thing about it, that as I was giving them quotes for stuff, again, 5, 8, 10, even like 15,000 for one, they all got approved, and they all got, I started building it out. And so, yeah, man, within those next couple of months, easily, made up a good chunk for sure, which kind of got me going. And then after that, that's when I started getting other people that I knew, that I worked for. The word got out, I guess, that, hey, I was doing my own thing. They're like, can you build me something, or can you do this or whatever? And yeah, man, from there it just kind of just word of mouth pretty much. But again, about 80, 85% of even like today, current customers are people that I have worked with before, and now they're in different companies and they're in higher positions, and I still have relationships with them. So they reached out to me, and man, I've been working with a lot of the guys still until now. Um, so again, got to build those relationships for sure. And I think one thing that's key too, when you build relationships, I don't mean either like to be fake and just try to, you know, kiss people's ass or whatever because you want something from them later on in the future. I mean more like in a sincere manner, right? Like just get to know people. You may have common things that's in common with certain people, and you build relationships, friendships, and things of that nature. And you never know, right? I mean, that's the way I saw it. In a way, I was not ever look like the relationship that I built. Not once did I ever build these relationship with a purpose of maybe I could get something from them in the future. Maybe they could give me this, or they could hire or whatever. It was never nothing even close to that, right? So it just, I think it has to be kind of sincere as well, for sure.
Yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you coming through. I know it's getting kind of late, so I don't want to hog up all your time, man. But I love to have you back because there's a ton of other questions I can ask you. Did you want to leave the listeners and watchers any closing thoughts? Like, how can they reach out to you? Or
Yeah, for sure. So I do have a YouTube channel, and I'm actually starting my live stream on that this Thursday. So once a week, Thursday on YouTube, 9 p.m. So my channel is called I Am Lou, and the handle is Coding with Lou on YouTube. So again, either way, you can find me either way on YouTube. I do through email. I do have an email that's very specific for my YouTube channel. So it's contact at iamlou.net. So you could email me. I'm very active on my YouTube with my viewers. So I've been kind of focusing on trying to build that. That's kind of I think what I kind of see potentially my a next phase of what I wanna grow and do in that piece. But even today, I get emails all the time. I do Zoom calls with my viewers. I allocate a few hours a week for viewers that want to book time to meet one on one, and then I meet with them, try to help them out, review their code base if they want. Again, Python specific. I focus more on Python, but stuff like that. AWS as well. So yeah, anybody could reach me out through email, through YouTube. Maybe do follow me on YouTube. You'll find the calendar link for sure to be able to book some time if you want to book time. And yeah, I'm gonna be very active for sure. More so active this year on my YouTube channel. So there'll be a lot of videos dropping soon.
yep. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch y'all later.